Hello and welcome to Amy Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series. And it is St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm wearing my green. And today our guest, I'm a little off today. Our guest today is fellow AMAer, Michael Fleischner.
Hey, everybody. Hey,
How you
Julie.
doing? Michael and I are actually past presidents of our chapters. He of New Jersey, me of Puget Sound, obviously. And he's actually part of the PCC. Could you, since I would be not doing my due diligence, if you could talk about the PCC. I know there's a lot of AMA folks out there. They're like, what is the PCC? And this is a part of AMA. What is this?
Yeah, I love it, Julie. And the PCC actually is an acronym. It stands for the Professional Chapters Council. And we're a council of 12 volunteers, just like all of you. And we serve a number of different roles, but we're really a voice for the chapters and chapter leaders. So this group of 12 people, all past presidents of award-winning chapters. We've all been there, done that. Some of us got the t-shirt. And really, our goal is to support all of you, all of the chapter leaders doing it day in, day out across more than 70 individual AMA chapters in the US as well as Canada. Shout out to my friends in Toronto and whoever else is up there. I know I'm leaving somebody out.
Well,
But, you know, really our mission is simple. Our mission is to help you with the day-to-day support that you might, I shouldn't say day-to-day support. I should say strategic direction and support of the chapters. So really we have a couple of specific roles. One would be a leadership advisor. So these are individuals who speak with, as you know, you had an advisor when you were president. They speak directly with the president of each chapter, helping them, guiding them, mentoring them, or supporting them where they need it. And we also put on great events like Leadership Summit, also regional summits. So, you know, and then the other thing I forgot to mention, we also do CEAs, Chapter Excellence Awards, which I hope everybody is thinking about and working towards. Volunteer of the Year. So there are a lot of things that we do to support chapters throughout the year. And we're really that glue sometimes between Support Center and the individual chapters. And I love it. So I'm president-elect this year. Obviously, we follow the same calendar, right? So July 1, I'll step into the president's role and really standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, these are all AMA, I call them lifers, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody knows the Mihali's and, you know, other presidents that have come before. Holly Zachman is the current president, who's amazing. And Aaron Templer was president before
Previous
Holly. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just AMA giants, people who are just amazing. They're volunteers. And I continue to learn from each and every one of them.
Absolutely. It's very great. And if you're not within AMA, if you're within another nonprofit and you don't have something like a PCC, you might want to think of instituting one because it is really, really helpful. So if you have questions, contact Michael. We're here to talk more about freelancing and do that. So first of all, I'm happy. I'm going to see you next month in Chicago.
Absolutely.
I'm getting my plane ticket this weekend.
Excellent.
Very exciting. So we're going to talk about freelancing, and I know this is starting to be really, really a common topic. And how did you? First of all, how long have you been doing it, and how did you get into freelancing?
Great question. I've been doing it for, I'm almost embarrassed to say, close to 20 years before it was even a thing. And you know, here's the thing I love about freelancing. Freelancing is a unique journey for everyone. You know, some people, it doesn't even have to be in marketing, right? They could be a photographer and they take graduation photos, right? And they just do that once a year. Come May, June, they take a bunch of photos, they put some money in their pocket. And more importantly, they really enjoy what they do. My journey was a little different in the sense that it was born out of my own frustration with some of the marketing things that I was doing. And in conversation with someone, after I kind of remedied this issue I was working on, they said, well, if you could teach me how to do that, I'd pay you. And I said to myself, really? You would pay me for that? Right. Check. So that created that curiosity of, hey, you know, in addition to my 9 to 5, which was really more like an 8 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do what I enjoy doing and actually get paid for it? And that
Mm-hmm.
was really the start of the journey, Julie. But I mean, it's been a
Yeah.
circuitous route to kind of get to ultimately where I am today, which is owning my own agency, Big Fin SEO. But my entire team, they're all freelancers. And I love it because I've been able to work with, as you know, working with other people throughout the AMA in particular, people who are extremely talented, extremely supportive of one another.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do we enjoy working together, but we deliver a great product to any company that we
Yeah,
support.
that's right. That's right. So I
Yeah.
love that you're able to do that, and you're able to bring on other freelancers to deliver to these clients. That's so great that you've been able to grow grow it so much. So you started this in high school?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, it's interesting because one of the biggest questions I get from people who are thinking about freelancing or who want to do freelancing is, well, I work. How can I freelance? And
Mm-hmm.
you can make it what you want.
Right.
All you need is one client. That's what I always say. All you need is one client. And
Yep.
that one client, and by the way, for people who are listening, a client means you're providing a service and someone's
Mm-hmm.
actually paying you. If you're
Yes.
doing it for free, it's a hobby and you're helping someone.
Or you're
Um,
volunteering.
you're volunteering, thank you. Or as we like to say in the AMA, you're being voluntold to do something. Um, so all you need is one client, and that
Yep.
client could pay you $100. That client
Mm-hmm.
could pay you $20. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Some of my early clients, I brought on for $250 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll write an email newsletter for you.
Yeah.
Or I have some freelancers that are writers and they're doing blogs for $50 a piece. And,
Mm-hmm.
again, all you need are one or two clients to get started. And you really need to make it your own, meaning the goal is to fit freelancing into your lifestyle, not the other way around. And that's how I did it as working full time.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I heard about from, I don't remember who it was, and I wish I could give them credit, but somebody said when you're first starting out to do freelancing and you're thinking, where can I find this extra time? And it's thinking about it like, well, would you be watching a TV show? Are you picking up a new hobby? And the way they described it was turning this freelance into a new hobby that happens to pay you.
I love it. I love it.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And that goes back to the whole thing of get paid for doing what you love.
Yeah, and look, a hobby is a great way to think about it because we do hobbies out of our own passion, out of our
Yes.
own interest. It's something we enjoy doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're into scrapbooking, why do you do it? Because it brings you joy. And
Exactly.
ultimately, for me, that's what helped me make the transition from doing one or two projects on the
Mm-hmm.
side to ultimately leaving corporate America, shutting the
Mm-hmm.
lights off and saying, I'm never stepping back into an office. Now, I never want to say never. Life is kind of crazy, weird things happen. But the reality is that once you establish a business for yourself and you're freelancing on a regular basis, it really does give you a platform to do as much or as little as you want and
Mm-hmm.
to kind of shape your own destiny. So, I think of myself, Julie, as being um, I want to say conservative from the work perspective, meaning I always thought that like you go to work, you work as hard as you can, you earn a paycheck, and you'll
Yeah.
find fulfillment, right? Especially with something you enjoy doing.
That's what we were
And
told, right? In the
yeah, that's
80s
what
and
we were
90s,
told.
that's what we were told.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and the reality is the reason people change jobs so much is because they're unfulfilled. They do or do not like their bosses, depending on the job. And
Mm-hmm.
any job over time, unless, someone like me who really thrives on variety, unless there's constant change, you're going to get bored or you're just going to get better at your job and it's going to become so much easier that you've got all this free time. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I feel like we were sold a bill of goods and we were, and I'm generalizing here, but I think as
Mm-hmm.
individuals, many of us don't think that we can cut it, quote unquote, on our own.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, we're doing it on our own every day. Every day you get out of bed and show up to work, right? You
Yeah.
did that, not
Yeah.
someone else. So we're already
Exactly.
doing it. But there
Yeah.
are these crazy mindsets out there where people think, yeah, I could never be a freelancer because that sounds like you're being an entrepreneur and you're
Mm-hmm.
not. You're showing up, you're doing what you enjoy to do, you're getting paid for it. It's that
Right.
simple.
Right, right. And I love the
Yeah.
example that you gave earlier about your photographer. Like, let's say you're an accountant during the day, but you really love photography and you just start doing graduation photos and it just builds from there because what do we love? Word of mouth, right?
Yes. Yes. And even today, Julie, like people will say, okay, but don't you need money to start a business, whether it's a freelance business or something else? Again, if you have a client and to your point, they
Mhm.
refer you to someone else, that costs you nothing except delivering a really good service. And I like the quote that Elon Musk had shared at some point in his career when someone asked him, well, why don't you advertise Tesla? He said, because I take all that money and I focus on building a better product.
Mhm.
Well, there's your advertising. So you don't have to advertise, you don't have to sell. You just
Right.
need to deliver a really good product. And I subscribe to
Mhm.
that. And if I
Right.
look at my marketing or advertising budget, I pay a fraction of what other people pay because we happen to deliver a good service. I like to
Mhm.
think so. And most of this business is referral. That's just
Yeah.
the reality.
Right. And another thing I like to add to it, because your company doesn't hide. Your company is out there. You're getting involved in the marketing community and other industries. Like, you're not just staying dormant and just doing your work. Like, you're getting involved and you're
Mhm.
making sure that people see you, but it's not in a, hey, look at us. It's more of,
Right.
hey, this might help you. And I think that's a big thing too. If people start seeing you as just offering help,
Mhm.
it'll start to come too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the bridge or the alignment with AMA. Think about the volunteers on our boards,
Hmm.
volunteers within the chapters. People just want to be helpful. And
Right.
if that's the approach you take, it really does kind of alleviate this angst around trying to market and sell a business. You don't need to convince anybody. You are better just supporting them, educating them. And if you can be of service, you're of service. And
Hmm.
I mean, that's just a great way to live personally. Forget
Right.
about freelancing. But, I think in the freelance world, there people are willing to pay for expertise. They're willing to pay for results.
Hmm.
And I think if mentally people can just overcome this idea that they are, again, kind of out on their own, which I don't feel is the case, but I know people struggle with that, then you can really make a life for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's great. You're not dependent on other people. Now, that's not to say, on the flip side of that, running your own business is a challenge, right?
Hmm.
You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going on a 2 week vacation,
Right.
and whatever happens at
Right.
work."
Right.
But that's okay. Again, if you enjoy what you do, you don't necessarily need to. I mean, I don't know that I could go 2 weeks straight without doing
Hmm.
any work. It just,
Right.
right? I wouldn't be happy. So there are
Right.
definitely pluses and minuses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think of my mom, and I feel so silly that I've never used her as an example. My mom cleaned houses. She worked
Okay.
for a company for until I was about, I think, six, or no, until I was about 11. And she didn't like the company. So many of the clients said, you know what? If you go out on your own, I'll come with
We'll just
you.
pay you directly. Yeah.
Exactly. So she didn't really own a company. She was a freelance cleaning lady.
Yeah.
I was her only employee.
Okay.
I'm not cleaning your house. Um, I can clean a bathroom like nobody's business, but I
I'm
just don't.
sure.
But that's how it happened. Like, it was her work. She hated cleaning. Oh my God. The
Mhm.
moment she could get out of it, she did. But she took so much pride in what she did because it was her name attached.
Yeah.
People were writing a check out to her directly. So it gives you that motivation of like, I have to do a good job. And boy, did she put a work ethic in me from it.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and because of that, she was able to grow the business, and it was word of mouth. Like, hey, a friend of a friend recommended her, and got to the point where she stopped taking on new clients. And I
Hmm.
feel
Hmm.
terrible. I haven't mentioned this before, but yeah, it's really doing that good job and really getting
Yeah.
that pride into it.
Yeah. And look, I know a lot of people struggle, people who want to be freelancers or have something they want to be doing in addition to their full-time job. And it could be related, it could be
Mhm.
totally unrelated. But, if someone is, let's say, passionate about writing, I talked about the blogger
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
A challenge a lot of people have is, I know I want to do this, I know I can do this, but how do I get that first client? That's always a big question I get, right? How do I
Right.
get that first
Right.
client? And it goes back to something you said earlier, Julie, just about the business, which is let people know that you're available.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes that's all
Yes.
it takes. It
Right.
takes being out on, I don't know, LinkedIn and seeing
Hmm.
someone saying, we're looking for a full-time writer and emailing them and saying, look, I have a full-time position, but if you need help in the interim, I can write a couple of blog posts for you. And then next thing you know, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just easier today than it was 10, 15 years ago to really get started because people are transparent with their needs.
Hmm. And you just made me think of something else too. We're just going back and forth. This is so great, and I
Yeah.
love it. But it's like you just said, of you see that a role is open and you just send them a thing of, hey, I can do some interim stuff. You're solving their problem. They have a
Yes.
problem, you're solving it.
Yes.
And they will remember that. So yeah, you and that's the thing that you're always doing. You're solving problems for your clients.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you're able to say
Absolutely.
it directly, I can do this for you.
Hmm. Hmm. And I know, like, one of the mistakes I made early on, especially when I was trying to drum up business, to use like a outdated phrase, I always thought, well, price is always the issue. So if, I normally charge $500, but
Mhm.
I'll just do it for $100 or whatever the case might be. It wasn't until I was older and wiser that I realized, A, you don't have to do that, right? Because everyone is in a, at least the buyers are in a position to say yes or no. If price was an issue, they
Mhm.
could tell you, or you could
Right.
ask them.
Mhm.
Um, but more importantly, you shouldn't devalue your services, right? So, and that kind of leads into another thing, which is, well, how much should I charge? And my answer to that is just do a little research, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we have the internet at our disposal. Do
Yeah.
some Googling, see what other people are charging, or
Yep.
put up a post and interview 3 people and
Yep.
ask them what they charge. Like, it's not difficult. And again, my recommendation there is don't discount your services. You're
Mhm.
better off finding people who are willing to pay you what you're worth. Um,
Right, right. And if
and
you've
that doesn't
solved, oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't mean you shouldn't be competitive, right? You shouldn't be charging people 3x what they should be paying, but at the
Mhm.
same time, you want to make sure you're getting paid what you're worth.
Right, absolutely. And I've seen with some clients, if you completely understand what their problem is and how you're trying to solve it, and you rather than, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, rather than truly understanding what they're saying, and if you deliver a product where it's answering every one of their questions, they're not going to care how much it is. They're like, oh my gosh, this is going to solve everything. This is fantastic. Here's money.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that's sometimes where that discrepancy is, where you see clients and freelancers kind of butt heads when it comes to, the invoice, because it's,
Mhm.
it's possibly that the client doesn't feel that they got the value, or there was an under deliver. And
Yeah,
what is like under promise and over deliver. That's
that's
how
it.
I was trained.
And
Yeah.
there's something to be said for that. There really
Mhm.
is. I mean, I like to
Mhm.
make sure that people are getting more value than they're paying us. That's
Mhm.
why they keep coming back. That's why you are in a position to develop like meaningful relationships with clients, which is just more fulfilling. I mean,
Mhm.
personally, for me, I think one of the reasons I am a freelancer is I'm not a transactional guy. I'd
Yeah.
rather build a relationship. There's more meaning in that. And I think there's more
Mhm.
value in that. And if you want to go sell widgets, cool. Like, just put up a Shopify store, do drop shipping, do Amazon
Mhm.
fulfillment, like whatever. I'm sure you could find that video somewhere on TikTok or YouTube or what have you. But if you really want to build a business where you're focused on delivering services to those who need and value those services, then freelancing is the stuff, quite honestly.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it. Like, what skills do you think are needed to become a freelancer? Obviously, the skills to do the job itself. If you're a photographer, you have to know how to use a camera,
Yeah.
obviously. But I mean, outside of that, like when you're adding that freelancer title to your list of
Yeah.
jobs, what skills do you need? Organization, I would imagine, is like number one.
Yeah, organization is pretty important. I can tell you, as someone who used to really sweat the details, um, I wasn't very good at it. So, I wanted to have every T crossed and I dotted, but
Mhm.
I would miss things, right? Because I'm,
Mhm.
kind of typical, like I'm distractible. So
Me too.
what I did was I compensated by either finding someone who could help me, a VA,
Mhm.
virtual assistant, or someone in more of a project management role who was more focused on clients,
Mhm.
or I should say, and using a system to help me manage things like Trello, like
Yeah.
Basecamp, like Asana, like
Mhm.
Monday.com. I mean, there are millions of these
Yeah.
things. And it's just a matter of finding the one that works for you. I think
Mhm.
it's an excellent question, Julie, because I think beyond kind of that willingness or interest to serve, to really deliver something of value to someone, I
Mhm.
come back to, and I'm really kind of thinking this through, like all of the organizational stuff is
Mhm.
definitely important, but it's also the ability to multitask, to be able to, right? And I mean, having
Yeah.
run a chapter, all about that. But the multitasking piece is really being able to multitask between your full-time job if you're working, or if
Mhm.
you're a full-time freelancer, you're going to have multiple clients. And
Mhm.
you have to have the emotional intelligence to know when it's time to reach out to a client, how
Yes.
quickly you should follow up to other clients, where
Mhm.
everything is in the queue, what's the priority. So there's definitely some mental gymnastics that you do on a regular basis as a
Mhm.
freelancer that I don't know that you do in a traditional job. Or at
Right.
least that used to be the case. I mean, you know, after COVID, everyone is
Mhm.
trying to do 10 times more with less, right? So I think we all multitask to some extent. But as
Sure.
a freelancer, if you want to kind of rise above it and have a level of satisfaction with what you're delivering, you do need to compartmentalize so that you've got
Yes.
that ability to do some deep thinking.
What I like to do is, look at my schedule, and when I see like there's a big block of time, depending on how big that block is, I might divide it into two with a break in between. And I'm just going to focus on this client, and here's exactly what I'm going to focus. And it might be writing out the campaign or gathering images or something like that. And,
Exactly.
the next client, you're, the next block. And that's how you kind of prioritize. Color coding is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
love that you said prioritization because deadlines mean something.
They sure do. They sure do. And it's like we say at the AMA, meetings start on time and they end on time. We do that for a reason. And if that can
Mhm,
carry over into your freelance life, even better.
mhm,
It's funny you talk about calendars. So as the president-elect for the PCC, Professional Chapters Council this year, I've been meeting with our president, Holly Zachman, on a regular basis. And I know we were trying to change something on a schedule. And she said, "Oh, let me pull up my calendar." And I noticed all of this color coding, which was like so impressive. And I'm like, what is that all about? And, like AMA things are coded blue and work
I do
things
the
were
same
coded.
thing.
It's
I've
brilliant.
been doing that
It's really made a
for years.
difference. It's
And
really
it,
made
and
a
it,
difference.
if I can add in like the specific hex code for the AMA blue, I
Okay.
will do it. I will do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Everything is equal.
That's a great idea. But it does help you stay focused. It
It
helps
really
you
does.
compartmentalize. There's a lot of value in that.
Mhm,
And,
mhm,
I think one of the things to be mindful of is that, again, it doesn't really matter what capacity you're freelancing in.
mhm.
Certain clients are going to need more face time than others, and it's good to
Sure.
establish that early in the game,
Okay.
because setting boundaries is something that I think is difficult in general. It becomes even more difficult when
Mhm,
you're in a freelance situation because you don't
mhm.
want to disappoint your client. There are
Right.
all these things happening. And if you do that in the beginning, which is,
Mhm,
"Hey, Julie, looking forward to working with you. I'd like to recommend that we have a face-to-face meeting once a month.
mhm,
And every other week, I'll send you an email update. If at any point in time you need to get on a Zoom call with me, let me know." As
mhm.
opposed to the client saying, "Oh, we're going to talk 3 times a week, right?" You know, it can quickly get out of hand if
Right.
you want to focus on becoming a freelancer. If you're just
Mhm.
doing a project and the project really warrants more frequent touches, great. But think about if you had 3 clients, 10 clients, 15 clients, 30
Mm-hmm.
clients, how are you going to get through the same 8 or 10
Right.
hours that
Right.
everyone else is
Right.
getting through?
Right. And one thing that I think that some folks may not realize or understand is when you have a client, yeah, they're your client and they're paying you, but you're leading those discussions
Hmm.
because they're hiring you because you're the professional in this specific instance. They're looking to you. So you need to lead that. So I love that you said with setting up the boundaries at the beginning because that is so important. You don't want a client calling you at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
because we're in marketing. Come on. Unless
Yeah.
something happened on, Twitter, the world's gonna be fine. But
Yes.
setting those boundaries early, I even suggest because and I come from a sales background as well, and banking, document.
Mm.
Document, document,
Yes.
document. If you put that in your contract, even like we will meet on these days and add, as needed per both parties' approval.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to put that in there because as needed could be the client says, well, we think we need it. Like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, there has to be mutual understanding for
Yes,
sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like that you said with setting boundaries too. And it's so important. Otherwise, you're going to get burned out
Hmm.
like
It's a
really
lot.
hard. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too that as you spend more time freelancing and you really understand what you like, what you don't like, what takes an inordinate amount of time versus something that you
Hmm.
can do quickly, that can be reflected in the clients you take on, in the type of services you deliver.
Hmm.
And again, what's so beautiful about freelancing is, if there's a client that you're just having a bad experience with, you can say, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm the right freelancer for you.
Right,
Um,
right.
and honestly, in my 20-year career freelancing, I think I've had that happen maybe once or twice.
Hmm.
So you're in a different situation because you're really choosing your clientele.
Hmm.
And again, don't get me wrong, getting started, you got to take some jobs that maybe not your favorite thing to do. But
Hmm.
at some point you'll kind of understand how to deliver
Right.
on your expertise. And
Hmm.
that's what you can spend the majority of your time doing.
Yeah. It's a learning experience. And that's how I take it. Like, this is a temporary situation and it's a learning experience and bite my
Yes.
tongue. Unless it's so bad that, like, no, 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 I need to separate myself. Like, if you're in a situation where it's like, this is, some abuse coming, like, no, 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 you need to separate
Of
yourself.
course.
You have that. Okay. You are allowed to do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't put yourself in a situation that you shouldn't be. Um, yeah. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else that I mean, I don't want to end because we're just kind of on
Yeah,
a
I mean, I can tell you, for those who are just tuning in or who have been with us during the session, you know, there are all these little tips and tricks I've picked up being a freelancer, and one of them is actually how to close more business. So again, one of the biggest challenges a lot of freelancers have is either getting their first client
Mhm.
or growing their freelance business. And truthfully, none of us, even myself, who I know you've been in sales, I've enjoyed the sales process, but I don't want to spend all my time selling. I want to be delivering, right? Delivering services to clients. Like that's what they're
Mhm.
paying me for.
Right.
But one of the things that seems to work really well is kind of breaking down the traditional sales funnel and making
Mhm.
it more of a collaborative process. So that means in the beginning, um, really listening to what challenges your client is having and let them
Mhm.
do the talking and asking probing questions, just like you've done on this interview, right? Like, tell me about this. How about that?
Mhm.
What do you
Yeah.
recommend here? And by getting to know your clients better, you can create a proposal that, and you talked about this earlier, meets their specific needs. And
Mhm.
my recommendation, the $1 million tip here is don't just put together a proposal and email it. Put together a proposal and then schedule a call and say, dear client, um, proposal's ready. I'd love to walk you through it. Let's meet at this day and time. And you literally walk them through it. And I can
Right.
tell you, Julie, that has transformed my business. I've been doing that for years now,
Mhm.
um, in two ways. One, if there are any objections, you can answer those objections immediately. So you're not
Absolutely.
waiting. Um, Two, you make sure that the client understands what they're paying for. These are the deliverables. Here's
Yep.
why it costs what it costs. You can explain all of that during the process, and
Hmm.
it's not how most people do it. So you
Right.
stand out in the eyes of that prospect. And what it cuts down on is the inevitable chasing after you've delivered a proposal. I don't do
Right.
that anymore. I have a couple of conversations sometimes before we even put a proposal together. I
Hmm.
walk people through the proposal and I say, does this look good? And either they say yes, no, or we need to think about it. And if they
Hmm.
need to think about it, I'll automate an email a few days later. And then that's it. I move
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you've done everything that you can do and you just might not be a good fit. It's kind of like acting,
Hmm.
right? All these
Hmm.
um, uh, budding actors show up for commercial auditions, and some are interested in them, others aren't. And it's not
Hmm.
because of self-worth, it's because you don't have the right look or you're not tall enough or
Hmm.
whatever. And
Right.
the same kind of works in freelancing. You want to find those
Right.
clients who you're a good match for.
Right. And for those that, you sent the automated email and nothing, I mean, how many of them, perhaps came back later where they said, you know what, at the time we thought we were ready and we weren't, or it got stopped because of some other weird thing.
Mhm.
And then they finally come back to you like, you know what, thank you so much for not being a pressure salesperson. Like, thank you
Right.
so much for giving us that time. We
Mhm.
appreciate that. And it sounds like you'll treat us well.
Exactly. Exactly. And it does happen. It definitely happens. Yeah.
Absolutely. As before we kind of close out, what in your perspective, what are like the top 5 benefits to be a freelancer?
Yeah. So I would say the number one benefit is flexibility. So
Mm,
again, I do this full time. My schedule's my own. If I want to come in later and work later, I can do it. And I actually have an office space now, separate from my home because I need that
mhm,
separation between work and home. But I can choose my hours. If I want to
mhm.
take off Friday, I'll take off Friday. If I want to do a little work over the weekend, I can do it over the weekend. So
Sure.
that flexibility for me is extremely important. So I'd say that's the first benefit. The
Mhm,
second is really around your ability to choose who you work with, both on the client side and freelance side. And everybody on my team, each and every one of them is fantastic. And that didn't happen by accident. These are
mhm.
relationships that we've been building for years and years and years. And I know what they can deliver.
Yeah.
And they're the types of people I want to work with. So that's really the second benefit. And then I'd say the third one is from an income perspective. I'm making twice what I made in a full-time job. And and now again, I've been at this a long time, but what I was most afraid of, which is am I going to be able to feed my family, was an irrational fear
Yeah.
because, I was delivering value and people are willing to pay for value. So, I
Mhm.
think financially people who have some concerns,
Yeah.
they're understandable, but I can tell you as someone who's been doing this a long time, many years of being in business for myself, it is very doable. And
Mhm.
then, other benefits, geez, I would probably, those are the top three, but I would say
Okay.
some other ones are, I'm continually learning and growing and expanding, right? So even within
Mhm.
my discipline, which is search engine optimization, we also offer other digital solutions like paid search and website development. And those are things that I had to learn over the last few
Mhm.
years. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity in my traditional job. So,
Mhm.
I think there's that benefit of, especially for those who want to continue to learn and grow, that you can do in freelancing. And
Sure.
then, the final benefit is probably just the satisfaction you get of knowing that you don't have to go and work in a traditional job. And I don't know, my definition of a traditional job is probably different than someone else's, but
Mhm.
I can tell you in that experience, of course, there were times in my career where I did feel a sense of pride and fulfillment, but there were also many times where I was empty, right?
Mhm.
I just went through the
Mhm.
motions. I didn't enjoy my job. I didn't care for, let's say, a boss or a colleague or whatever. And it was difficult because I felt like I was in a situation where I had no control. So
Sure.
I kind of round it out with that to say that, when you're freelancing, you're in charge,
Hmm.
which is good and bad, right? You've got the responsibility to deliver, but at the same time, you've got the control to really make it your own. So a lot of benefits there. And I encourage anyone who's interested in freelancing just to give it a try, even if it's a small project, and
Hmm.
see where it takes them.
Agreed. Agreed. That is really, really great advice. One more thing. What is AMA New Jersey up to?
So AMA New Jersey is still alive and kicking. We're actually one of the oldest chapters in the country. I think like 70, I'm going to guess, I'd have to ask Jamie, but probably like the 78 years or something
Okay.
like that.
Because we were formed in 44.
We were around the same time, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So whatever that math works out to be,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. So New Jersey, look, near and dear to my heart. We've had just great president after great
Mm-hmm.
president and board, very strong board commitment, um, which I like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And we're excited because as spring kind of happens, things are opening up here in New Jersey. I'm sure there are going to be some in-person events, which are long overdue.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing. I think we all thrive when we're together.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that virtual is going to go away, but having that option to be in person is really special.
Oh yeah, I imagining like because you were mentioning Leadership Summit, which takes place next month in Chicago, and I'll be there. We're bringing
Yay.
3 of us, and there's going to be like so many hugs thrown around. Like it's going to be like half of it is just going to be one big hugging session. I'm sure. I
Well, it's
haven't seen
definitely,
you in forever.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
Well,
then
it's
like
going to
the
be a
new
reunion.
it is,
Mhm.
and then the new
Yeah.
people are going to be like, oh, what did I get myself
Yeah.
into? I want
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many new faces there are this year. I mean, every year, Leadership Summit, on average, there's probably 50 to 60% of people who are new.
Yeah.
Obviously, attendance this year won't be the same as prior years.
Hmm.
I know some people are still concerned about in-person events, but I'm excited to see some old friends and make some new ones in April.
Me too. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to it. If you're in AMA, join your board. You can go to Chicago and meet us.
Yes, absolutely. Get involved.
Exactly. And you don't have to be a marketer to join AMA. We need salespeople. We need recruiters. We need strategists. We need analytics people. We need tech people. It's not just marketers. It takes all sorts to run a chapter. We need CPAs, all that. So
Yes.
bear that in mind. You just might learn some marketing, and that's great for your own business.
Mhm.
Anyway, is there anything you'd like to cover that we didn't, or that anything that you'd like to reiterate?
Yeah, the one thing I would say, Julie, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk about freelancing is, marketing has been very good to me. I've been on the corporate side, I've been on the agency side, I've had all these great projects like books and podcasts and all of these things. And, at the end of the day, it's really that alignment with
Mhm.
the essence of who we are, which is, this willingness to serve the community. And what's fantastic about AMA is that I have found clients through AMA, I have found freelancers and people to support the business through AMA, and it's just
Mhm.
such a wonderful community. So I want to leave it on that note and say thank you to you and everything that Puget Sound is doing. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you and the team in April, at the end of April at Leadership Summit. And Chicago, here we come.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Thank you so much, Mike, for your kind words. That's very, very sweet of you, and that means a lot to me. We're trying, we're trying hard.
That's all you can do.
That's
That's
all
all
we
you can
can
do.
do. That's all we can
Yeah.
do. Again, thank you so much for your time today, Michael. I really appreciate it. All of his information and links are in the description below, including New Jersey's chapter. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like button and subscribe, please. We need 4 more subscribers so I can change the URL. As a marketer, you understand. On that note, we will end, and I will bid you all a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Have a good one.